Jack had worked the night shift at the gas station for years, and he thought he had seen it all. But nothing could prepare him for what began on that quiet, uneventful night. The station's neon lights flickered occasionally, casting eerie shadows on the ground. It was just past midnight when the phone rang. Jack picked up the receiver, expecting to hear the usual late-night inquiries. "Central Gas, how can I help you?" he asked, his voice echoing in the empty station. There was silence on the other end. Jack frowned and repeated his greeting. Still nothing. Just as he was about to hang up, he heard a faint whisper. It sent a chill down his spine. "Jack," the voice said. It was barely audible, but clear enough to be unsettling. "Who is this?" Jack demanded, his heart pounding. The line went dead. Jack stared at the receiver, his mind racing. He knew he was alone in the station. How could someone know his name? He tried to shake off the unease and went back to his duties. But as he moved around the station, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. He glanced at the security cameras, but nothing seemed out of the ordinary. An hour passed, and just as he began to relax, the phone rang again. This time, Jack hesitated before answering. "Central Gas, how can I help you?" he said, trying to keep his voice steady. Again, there was silence, followed by the same eerie whisper. "Jack." Jack's skin crawled. "Who are you? What do you want?" he asked, but the line went dead again. His hands trembled as he set the receiver down. Something was very wrong. Jack decided to check the security footage more thoroughly. As he rewound the tapes, he noticed a figure standing just outside the range of the cameras, barely visible in the shadows. It was watching him. Fear gripped him as he realized that whoever or whatever was out there knew exactly where he was and was toying with him. Jack knew he needed to stay alert. The night had just begun, and he had a feeling it was going to get much worse. Jack couldn't shake the eerie feeling that someone was watching him. He kept glancing at the security monitors, but the figure had disappeared. As he went about his tasks, he tried to convince himself that it was just his imagination playing tricks on him. Around 2 a.m., strange things started happening. The lights in the station flickered, then dimmed, casting long, unsettling shadows. Jack heard a soft, almost imperceptible tapping sound coming from the storage room at the back. He cautiously made his way over, his flashlight cutting through the darkness. As he opened the door, the tapping stopped. Jack scanned the room, but found nothing out of the ordinary. He let out a nervous laugh, trying to dismiss his fear, and returned to the counter. Moments later, the tapping started again, louder this time. Jack's heart raced as he realized it wasn't just in his head. Determined to get to the bottom of it, he marched back to the storage room and flung the door open. Once again, silence greeted him. He checked every corner, but nothing seemed out of place. As he turned to leave, he noticed that some of the items on the shelves had been moved. Cans of oil that had been neatly stacked were now scattered, and a broom lay in the middle of the floor. Jack's anxiety grew. He felt an icy chill in the air as he picked up the broom and put it back. He needed to stay calm and focused, but the sense of dread was becoming overwhelming. Returning to the counter, he tried to distract himself with mundane tasks. But deep down, Jack knew something sinister was happening. The night wasn't over, and he was certain that whatever was out there wasn't done with him yet. As the clock struck 3 a.m., Jack's nerves were frayed. The gas station was eerily quiet, the silence only amplifying his anxiety. He tried to keep busy, but his mind kept returning to the strange occurrences. Then the phone rang again. Jack's heart pounded as he picked up the receiver. "Central Gas," he said, his voice trembling. "Jack." The whisper came again, clearer this time. "Who are you?" Jack demanded, his fear turning into frustration. "What do you want from me?" The voice responded with a chilling calmness. "I know everything about you, Jack. Your fears, your secrets." Jack's blood ran cold. "Stop playing games. Show yourself." The line went dead. Jack slammed the receiver down, his hands shaking. He felt exposed, vulnerable. Who could possibly know so much about him? Desperate for answers, Jack turned to the security cameras. He rewound the footage from the past hour and saw the shadowy figure again, lurking just outside the station. It moved with a strange, almost inhuman fluidity, always staying just out of the camera's clear view. Suddenly, the figure seemed to vanish into thin air. Jack's frustration grew. He needed to know who was tormenting him. He grabbed a flashlight and stepped outside, the cold night air hitting his face. He walked around the station, shining the light into the darkness, but found nothing. The sense of being watched was stronger than ever. Jack returned inside, defeated and more paranoid than before. Just as he sat down, the phone rang once more. Jack stared at it, dread pooling in his stomach. He hesitated, then picked it up. "Jack," the voice whispered. "I'm closer than you think." Jack's grip tightened on the phone. "What do you want from me?" he demanded, his voice quivering. The line went dead once again. Jack slammed the receiver down, his frustration boiling over. He knew he couldn't just sit and wait. He had to take action. Jack decided to review the security footage again, this time with a more critical eye. As he scrubbed through the video, he noticed something chilling. In the last frame before the figure disappeared, there was a brief flash of light reflecting off what looked like a pair of eyes staring directly at the camera. It was as if the entity knew it was being watched. Suddenly, the station's lights flickered violently, plunging the room into darkness for a few seconds before coming back on. Jack's heart raced as he scanned the room, feeling an icy presence close by. He grabbed his flashlight and headed to the storage room, where the tapping had originated. The door creaked open slowly. The room was colder than the rest of the station, and the air felt thick and oppressive. Jack shone his flashlight around, the beam revealing shelves of supplies and tools, all undisturbed. Just as he was about to turn back, he heard a soft whisper right next to his ear. "Jack!" He spun around, shining the light frantically. There was no one there, but the whisper had been unmistakable. Jack's fear reached a fever pitch. He was no longer dealing with a prank or a simple stalker. This was something far more sinister. Jack stumbled back to the counter, his mind racing. He tried to call the police, but the phone line was dead. Panic set in as he realized he was truly alone. Jack's mind was a whirlwind of fear and confusion. He knew he had to confront whatever was haunting him, but every part of him screamed to run. Summoning his courage, he decided to search the station one last time. He armed himself with a heavy flashlight and ventured into the main area. As he moved, the shadows seemed to grow darker, more oppressive. The flickering lights cast eerie shapes on the walls, adding to the sense of dread. Near the back of the station, he found a small door that he had never paid much attention to before. It led to a forgotten storage room. Jack hesitated, then pushed it open. The room was filled with old dusty supplies and an overwhelming sense of unease. In the center of the room, Jack saw an old, leather-bound book lying on a table. The book was open to a page filled with strange symbols and notes. As he approached, a cold wind swept through the room, and the door slammed shut behind him. Jack's flashlight flickered, and he heard the whisper again, louder and more insistent. "Jack, you cannot escape." Terrified, Jack grabbed the book and tried to leave, but the door wouldn't budge. He felt a cold hand brush against his neck, and he spun around, swinging the flashlight wildly. The beam illuminated a figure standing in the corner, its eyes glowing with an unnatural light. "Who are you?" Jack shouted, his voice breaking. The figure stepped forward, its form shifting and ethereal. "I am the keeper of this place," it said, in a voice that seemed to echo from another world. "You disturbed the past, and now you must face the consequences." Jack felt a surge of determination. He opened the book and began to read the incantations aloud, hoping to break the entity's hold. The figure screamed and lunged at him, but as Jack's voice grew stronger, the figure began to fade. With a final desperate effort, Jack shouted the last words of the incantation. The room filled with blinding light, and the entity vanished, leaving Jack alone in the now silent room. The oppressive atmosphere lifted, and Jack knew he had survived the night. Sarah had worked the night shift at the gas station for over a year, and she had her share of strange encounters. But there was one customer who stood out, a man who visited regularly but never bought anything. He would simply stand near the back of the store, watching her with an unsettling intensity. One night, as Sarah restocked the shelves, she saw him again. He entered the store and headed straight for the restroom. Sarah kept an eye on him, feeling a shiver run down her spine. Minutes passed, and he didn't come out. She approached the restroom door, knocking gently. "Sir, is everything okay in there?" she called out, but there was no response. She knocked again, louder this time. Still nothing. Growing concerned, Sarah unlocked the door with her manager's key and pushed it open. The restroom was empty. Her heart skipped a beat. She knew he had entered, but now he was gone. Sarah stepped back, trying to make sense of what had just happened. She checked the security monitors, rewinding the footage. There he was, entering the restroom, but no footage showed him leaving. A chill settled over her as she realized this wasn't just a regular disappearance. The man had vanished without a trace. Sarah's thoughts raced. Was it a trick, a prank, or something far more sinister? She tried to shake off the fear and return to her duties, but the image of the phantom customer lingered in her mind. She couldn't help but feel that he was still watching her, even if she couldn't see him. The night dragged on, and as the clock approached 3 a.m., Sarah's unease grew. She knew she had to find out what was happening, but the answers seemed just out of reach, cloaked in the same shadows that now filled the empty store. The next night, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Her shift began uneventfully, but as the hours crept by, her anxiety grew. She kept glancing toward the restroom, half expecting the phantom customer to reappear. Around midnight, her co-worker John arrived for his break. Sarah decided to confide in him about the previous night's incident. "John, have you ever seen that guy who just watches and never buys anything?" she asked. John nodded. "Yeah, he's been coming around for a while. Creeps me out, to be honest." Sarah's heart raced. Last night, he went into the restroom and never came out. I checked the security footage, and he just vanished." John's face paled. "That's not the first time I've heard of someone disappearing around here. There have been rumors among the staff about strange things happening at night." Sarah felt a cold sweat form on her forehead. "What kind of strange things?" "People say they see shadows, hear whispers. Some even claim to see faces in the mirrors. It's why a lot of people don't last long on the night shift," John explained. Determined to find answers, Sarah spent her break searching online for any news about the gas station. She found old articles detailing mysterious disappearances and strange sightings dating back decades. The station seemed to be a magnet for the unexplained. As she delved deeper, Sarah discovered a pattern. The disappearances always occurred between midnight and 3 a.m., the same time frame the phantom customer appeared. She felt a chill as she realized she was dealing with something far more sinister than she had imagined. Returning to her shift, Sarah was more determined than ever to uncover the truth. She knew she couldn't do it alone, but she had to find a way to stop the eerie occurrences before they claimed another victim. As the night progressed, Sarah's nerves were on edge. She kept busy, but her thoughts were consumed by the phantom customer and the disappearances. Just past 1 a.m., the front door chime rang, signaling someone entering. Sarah looked up and saw him, the phantom customer. Her heart pounded as she watched him move silently to the back of the store. This time, she decided to confront him. Summoning all her courage, she walked up to him. "Can I help you with something?" she asked, her voice steady despite her fear. The man turned to face her. His eyes were cold and distant, sending a shiver down her spine. "You should leave this place," he said, in a voice that seemed to echo from another realm. "What do you mean?" Sarah asked, trying to keep her composure. "Leave before it's too late," he repeated, then turned and walked toward the restroom. Sarah hesitated for a moment, then followed him. She reached the restroom door just as it closed behind him. She waited, heart racing, but after several minutes, the door didn't open. Gathering her resolve, she knocked. "Sir, are you okay?" Silence. Sarah opened the door, expecting the worst. But once again, the restroom was empty. No sign of the man. Her fear turned into determination. She couldn't let this go on. She needed answers. Sarah decided to check the security footage immediately. She watched in horror as the man walked into the restroom, but no footage showed him leaving. Instead, the camera flickered, and he vanished. A wave of dread washed over her. The man's words echoed in her mind. Leave before it's too late. What did he know? What was he warning her about? Sarah realized she had to uncover the gas station's dark secrets before it was too late. For her and anyone else who might fall victim to the phantom customer's haunting presence. Determined to uncover the truth, Sarah spent the next few nights researching the gas station's history during her breaks. She dug through old records, newspapers, and even spoke to some of the older residents in town. What she discovered sent chills down her spine. Decades ago, the gas station was the site of a tragic accident. A young man, employed as a night shift worker, had mysteriously disappeared. The police investigation turned up nothing, and the case went cold. Soon after, rumors of strange sightings and eerie occurrences began to circulate. Sarah's breakthrough came when she found an old article about the young man's disappearance. His name was David, and the accompanying photo matched the phantom customer exactly. David had never left the gas station. He was still here, trapped between worlds. Sarah's hands trembled as she read on. The article mentioned that David had been investigating strange occurrences himself, convinced the gas station was cursed. He believed that an old, unmarked grave nearby held the key to the mystery. Determined to put an end to the hauntings, Sarah knew she had to find that grave. The next night, she brought a flashlight and a shovel, hoping to uncover the truth. She searched the overgrown area behind the gas station, her heart pounding with every step. After what felt like hours, her flashlight beam caught a glimpse of something unusual. A small, weathered stone marked the spot. Sarah's hands shook as she began to dig. Finally, she unearthed a small, rusted box. Inside, she found a letter from David, detailing his suspicions about the curse and a plea for anyone who found the box to set things right. As Sarah read the letter, she felt a presence behind her. She turned, and there stood David, looking more real than ever. "You found it," he whispered. "Now, end this." Sarah knew what she had to do. She needed to perform a ritual to free David's spirit and lift the curse that had plagued the gas station for decades. Sarah's heart raced as she held David's letter, realizing the gravity of the situation. She carefully read through the instructions for the ritual, determined to help David and end the gas station's haunting. The ritual required her to burn the letter at the exact spot where she found the box, while reciting a specific incantation. With trembling hands, Sarah gathered the necessary materials, a lighter and some matches. She returned to the unmarked grave, the darkness and silence around her amplifying her fear. As she knelt beside the grave, she could feel David's presence watching over her. She placed the letter on the ground and struck a match. The flame flickered in the night air before catching the edge of the paper. She began to recite the incantation, her voice steady despite the fear gripping her heart. "Spirits bound by this cursed ground, hear my voice, make your presence known. Release the soul that here is found, let his torment be overthrown." The letter burned quickly, the flames consuming the paper and casting an eerie glow. As Sarah finished the incantation, a cold wind swept through the area, extinguishing the flames and leaving only ashes behind. She felt a shift in the air, a lightness that hadn't been there before. Slowly, she turned to see David standing there, a look of gratitude on his face. "Thank you," he whispered, his form beginning to fade. Sarah watched as David's spirit dissipated into the night, finally at peace. She felt a wave of relief wash over her. The curse had been lifted, and the gas station would no longer be plagued by the haunting presence. Exhausted but triumphant, Sarah returned to the gas station. The oppressive atmosphere had lifted, replaced by a sense of calm. She knew that the nights ahead would be peaceful, free from the terror that had once gripped the place. As she finished her shift and locked up for the night, Sarah felt a newfound sense of resolve. She had faced the unknown and come out stronger. The gas station was just a gas station again, and she was ready to move forward, leaving the haunting behind. Tom had been a security guard at the 24-hour gas station for 6 months. It was a quiet job, perfect for someone who preferred solitude. But recently, he had begun to feel a strange presence during his night shifts. Every night, around 2 a.m., he would see a shadowy figure watching him from the edge of the parking lot. Tonight was no different. Tom's eyes were drawn to the same spot where the figure always appeared. He squinted, trying to make out any details, but the figure remained elusive, shrouded in darkness. Tom's heart pounded as he felt the familiar sense of unease. Determined to confront the stalker, Tom grabbed his flashlight and headed outside. The cold night air hit his face as he walked toward the edge of the lot. "Hey, who's there?" he called out, his voice echoing in the stillness. The figure didn't move. Tom's flashlight beam cut through the darkness, but as he approached, the figure seemed to dissolve into the shadows. He stopped, scanning the area, but there was no sign of anyone. Frustrated and unnerved, Tom returned to the station. Back inside, he checked the security monitors, rewinding the footage. The figure was there, standing perfectly still, watching him. But just as before, it vanished as soon as Tom approached. He couldn't explain it, but he knew this was no ordinary intruder. As the night dragged on, Tom tried to focus on his duties, but the sense of being watched was overwhelming. Every noise, every shadow seemed sinister. He knew he had to stay vigilant, but the fear was becoming harder to ignore. Tom decided to keep a closer eye on the security feeds, hoping to catch the stalker in the act. He couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible was about to happen. The night was far from over, and he was determined to uncover the truth behind the silent watcher. As the hours ticked by, Tom's nerves were frayed. He kept a close watch on the security monitors, but the shadowy figure did not reappear. The stillness of the night made every creak and rustle seem amplified, feeding his growing paranoia. Around 3 a.m., Tom decided to take another round through the station. He walked the aisles, checking the stock and making sure everything was in order. When he reached the storage room at the back, a peculiar sight caught his attention. Strange symbols and messages had been carved into the wooden shelves and walls. They were crude but unmistakable, sending a chill down his spine. Tom's flashlight beam danced over the carvings, illuminating eerie, cryptic messages like, "He sees you and don't turn around." His breath caught in his throat as he realized these weren't just random graffiti. They were warnings. Determined to understand what was happening, Tom continued to examine the room. In a far corner, partially hidden behind a stack of old boxes, he found an old, tattered journal. The cover was worn, and the pages yellowed with age. He flipped through it, finding entries dating back decades, written by previous security guards. They all described similar experiences: sightings of the shadowy figure, strange noises, and an overwhelming sense of dread. Tom's hands shook as he read one particular entry. "I don't think he'll make it through the night. If anyone finds this, beware the watcher in the shadows. He feeds on our fear." A sudden noise behind him made Tom jump. He spun around, flashlight poised, but saw nothing. The silence was oppressive, and the sense of being watched intensified. He knew he couldn't stay in the storage room any longer. Grabbing the journal, he hurried back to the main area of the station. The mystery was deeper than he had imagined, and Tom realized he was dealing with something far more sinister than a mere stalker. He needed to find out who, or what, was haunting the gas station before it was too late. Tom's mind raced as he tried to make sense of the journal's warnings. The entries were filled with fear and desperation, describing encounters with the same shadowy figure that now tormented him. He couldn't let his guard down. Just as he was about to close the journal, the front door chime rang. Tom's heart skipped a beat. He looked up and saw a figure standing at the entrance, shrouded in darkness. The lights flickered, casting eerie shadows across the room. "Who's there?" Tom called out, his voice wavering. The figure stepped inside, moving silently. It was the same person, or thing, that had been watching him from the parking lot. Tom's grip tightened on his flashlight as he felt a wave of cold fear wash over him. The figure didn't speak. It just stood there, watching him with eyes that seemed to glow faintly in the dim light. Tom took a step back, his instincts screaming at him to run, but he forced himself to stay. "What do you want?" he demanded, trying to sound braver than he felt. The figure raised a hand, pointing towards the back of the store. Tom's eyes followed the gesture, and he noticed a door he had never paid much attention to before. It led to the basement, a place he had rarely visited. "You want me to go down there?" Tom asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The figure nodded slowly, then vanished as suddenly as it had appeared. The lights flickered again, and Tom was left standing alone, his heart pounding. Summoning all his courage, Tom walked towards the basement door. He opened it cautiously and peered down the dark stairs. The air was colder, and an unsettling feeling of dread washed over him. He descended the stairs, flashlight in hand, each step echoing ominously. At the bottom, he found another series of cryptic carvings on the walls, similar to those in the storage room. The atmosphere was thick with an oppressive energy. As he moved further into the basement, he stumbled upon a small, hidden room. Inside, he discovered a shrine of sorts, filled with old photographs, trinkets, and more of the disturbing symbols. In the center was a photograph of a man who looked eerily similar to the shadowy figure. Tom realized that he was dealing with something far more dangerous than he had ever imagined. The haunting presence was tied to this place, and he needed to find a way to put an end to it before he became its next victim. Tom's flashlight flickered as he studied the shrine. The photograph in the center showed a man with hollow eyes and a haunting expression. The same face that had been watching him night after night. He felt a chill run down his spine as he realized he was staring into the face of the entity that haunted the gas station. He carefully examined the items around the shrine. Old letters, newspaper clippings, and personal belongings told a tragic story. The man in the photograph was a former security guard named Henry, who had worked at the station decades ago. According to the articles, Henry had disappeared mysteriously, just like the others mentioned in the journal. Tom picked up a faded letter and read it. It was written by Henry, describing his descent into madness as he experienced the same eerie occurrences that Tom was now facing. Henry had become obsessed with the idea that the gas station was cursed and had tried to uncover its secrets, just like Tom. The letter ended with a desperate plea. "If you're reading this, know that the Watcher in the shadows is real. He feeds on our fear and despair. The only way to end this torment is to confront him and break the cycle." Tom felt a surge of determination. He realized that Henry's spirit was trapped here, seeking redemption. The haunting presence wasn't just a random entity. It was the tortured soul of Henry, doomed to relive his fear and isolation. Armed with this knowledge, Tom knew what he had to do. He needed to confront Henry's spirit and offer him peace. The final step was to find Henry's resting place and perform a ritual to release his tormented soul. With renewed resolve, Tom climbed back up the stairs, determined to end the haunting once and for all. He had the journal, the letters, and the knowledge he needed. It was time to face the darkness and bring light to the shadows that had plagued the gas station for too long. Tom emerged from the basement, his mind set on ending the torment. He gathered the items he needed for the ritual, the journal, the letters, and a small candle he found in the storage room. He knew Henry's spirit needed to be set free, and the only way to do it was to confront the entity directly. He walked outside to the spot where the shadowy figure always appeared. The night was cold and still, the air thick with anticipation. Tom placed the candle on the ground, lit it, and began to read from the journal, reciting the words Henry had written. Spirit bound by fear and despair, hear my voice, feel my prayer. From this place, you must depart. Find your peace and ease your heart. As he spoke, the shadows around him seemed to grow darker, more intense. The temperature dropped, and Tom could see his breath in the air. The figure began to materialize in front of him, its eyes glowing with an eerie light. Tom continued, his voice steady despite the fear gripping him. Henry, I know your pain. Your torment ends tonight. Be free from this curse and find your peace. The figure moved closer, its form becoming clearer. It was Henry, but twisted by years of torment. Tom held his ground, repeating the incantation. From this place, you must depart. Find your peace and ease your heart. Henry's spirit paused, as if considering Tom's words. The shadows around them began to recede, and the oppressive feeling lifted slightly. Tom took a deep breath and stepped forward, holding out the journal. Your story is known. Your suffering is understood. Be free, Henry. With those final words, the figure began to dissolve, the shadows fading away. The oppressive atmosphere lifted completely, replaced by a sense of calm and peace. The candle's flame flickered and then went out, leaving Tom standing alone in the quiet night. He knew it was over. Henry's spirit had been set free, and the gas station was no longer haunted. Tom felt a profound sense of relief and accomplishment. He'd faced the darkness and emerged victorious. As he locked up the station for the night, Tom knew he would never forget this experience. He had brought peace to a tormented soul and uncovered the truth behind the haunting. The gas station was just a gas station again, and he could finally move forward without fear.